Okay, so today we're going over lesson 10A, and today we're going to continue with solving equations, but the difference is today there will be variables on both sides. So this is just day one. We're going to be looking at this for the next 3 days. Please write down though at the top, anytime we see equations, we want to do this checklist. So the first thing you want to check for is if there's any distribution that has to be done. I put parentheses around that because remember, we know if we have to distribute if there's a number outside of parentheses. The second thing to check for is any like terms to combine. Then we will generally draw our line after that. But the third thing we want to check for is that the same side variables, that we have variables on the same side of our line, of our equal sign. And then we'll follow our normal steps to solve, draw the line, circle the variable, do the inverse. Today's objective, students will be able to solve equations that have variables on both sides of the equation and check their solutions. Students will also be able to write the mathematical properties used when solving equations, and this is important for real-life problems like finding out which cell phone plan costs less. All right, so we are going to be skipping this first example because we're going to work mostly with integers today. So please write in a skip right here so that I know when I check your notes that you skipped that problem on purpose. The second example, though, is going to be our first one that we're doing together. And so I'm going to draw my line, and I'm going to look on each side to see if there's any distribution or combining like terms that could occur. And so I'm looking on the side on the left, says 3x plus 7. And there's no parentheses, there's no like terms, so I know that one's already simplified. On the right-hand side, 5x minus 19. Again, it's already simplified. No parentheses, no distribution, no combining like terms. We're good to go. So now I go to circle my variables, and I notice that I have x's on both sides of this equal sign. So our first step now is to get them together. A general rule I like to go with, just to avoid negatives as much as possible, is to move the smaller one. So if I'm looking at 3x's here and 5x's there, then I've got less x's on this side, so I can move those over a little bit easier. Now I want to move this entire expression. I want to move this entire term, and so I'm going to be subtracting. So I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. And I chose the 3x because it was smaller. Now you'll notice I'm stacking it up underneath the other x terms, the other variable terms, so that I can combine these. 3x minus 3x is going to cancel out. That's what I wanted. And I have a positive 7 left. So 7 will equal, now I do this. 5x minus 3x is just combining like terms, and so that's going to give me 2x's, and I bring down the minus 19. So that's how we work that first step, since we had variables on both sides. So we look for the smaller one, and then we want to add or subtract to move it. Look for the smaller one, then add and subtract. Let's write that down. Look for the smaller variable term, then add or subtract. We're going to add or subtract to move it because we want to move the whole term. We don't want to divide off the 3. We don't want to multiply by anything. We don't want to divide. We want to add or subtract so the whole term moves to the other side. And then we just solve as before, circle the variable. The rest of this should be pretty simple. We're going to add 19 to both sides. So that gives us 26 equals 2x. We divide by 2, and we get 13 is equal to x, or x equals 13. Now, if we want to check our solution, we can always plug that in. 3 times 13 was what we said x is equal to, plus 7 should equal 5 times 13 minus 19. So don't forget to check your solutions. 3 times 13 is going to give us 39 plus 7. On this side, 5 times 13 is going to give us 65 minus 19. Then we work that out. 39 plus 7 is going to give us 46. And 65 minus 19 is also going to give us 46. Since the sides are equal, we know that checks out, and our answer is correct. All right, so let's try one of those again. Variables on both sides. Let's look over here at number 1. So again, I'm going to look for any distribution, any combining like terms. I don't see that, so we can go ahead and draw the line, circle the variables, look for the smaller one. So that one's 7x, that one's 3x. 3 is smaller. The opposite of a positive 3x is negative 3x. So that's what I'm going to do to move it to the other side is I'm going to subtract that 3x. 7x minus 3x is going to give me 4x plus 5. On this side, the 3x's cancel out. And so all I'm left with now is a negative 27. Don't forget the sign in front of a number stays with that number. Now we go ahead and continue as usual. We subtract 5 from both sides. So then I bring down what I have left. 4x is going to equal, remember our negative rules, we're actually going to be adding those. Minus 27 minus another 5 gives me a negative 32. And then when I divide both sides by 4, we get x equals negative 8. Remember, you should always check your answers. 7 times negative 8 plus 5 should be equal to 3 times negative 8 minus 27. Go ahead and check that answer on your own and make sure that it's correct. Let's try a couple other simple ones. Let's look at when they're negative. So we're going to draw the line, circle the variables. There's no distributive property. There's no combining like terms. So let's look at which one's smaller. We have 6x or negative 8x. Negative 8x is definitely smaller. So I'm going to add that one this time because the opposite of negative 8x is positive 8x. And remember, you want to stack it underneath its like term. Notice I'm putting it underneath the other x term every time, not the constant. So I want to put it underneath the variable term. And then we can bring down what we have. So we have negative 15. 6x plus 8x is a positive 14x. And that will equal what we're left with over here, which is positive 13. Now we circle the variable again, and we work backwards. So farthest from the variable is the negative 15. To get rid of that, I add 15 to both sides. We get 14x equals 28. Dividing by 14 would get us x equals 2. All right, let's look at a couple other cases before we see some where we have to distribute. So I'm going to draw the line, circle the variables. Now this time we see the smaller term on the side over here, and it's okay to move that away. All we would be left with is a 0 on that side. So you could either choose to subtract the 6x and move it over there, resulting in a negative 2x, or we could subtract the 4x term over here and end up with 0 on this side. But you have to always have something on both sides. So I'll show you how I would normally do this. This is smaller, so I would subtract the 4x from both sides. So we'd end up with positive 2x minus 8 equals, now notice these cancel out, and so what I would still have to write is a 0. And then I continue as normal. 0 is a number 2. That's fine to have 0 on one side. I would add 8 to both sides. We get 2x equals 8. Dividing by 2 would get us to x equals 4. Okay, so we can work it that way. The other way would just result in some more negatives. All right, last one of the easy ones. Draw the line, circle the variable, and we look to see which one's smaller. This is a 6x, but what number is here? Remember, you have to think, oh, that's a 1. And so that one is definitely smaller. I'm going to subtract the 1x from both sides. What I'm left with, remember, is a negative 25. 6x minus 1x is 5x. Circle the variable. We see the 5 is attached, and so we have to divide both sides by 5. And negative 25 divided by 5 is negative 5. And there's our answer. All right, so that's how we handle variables on both sides. We're going to be skipping these word problems for now. We'll come back to those with our journal. So write a skip in there for now. Number 6, again, we're going to write a skip for now, but we will see some of these show up in your journals. And we'll go to number 7. So number 7 now, this is what it looks like when you have some distributive property to do. So I can draw my line to separate the two sides of the equation. Remember, there is a left side and a right side. And I look at them separately. So over here, I see a 5 outside of the parentheses, so that tells me I have to distribute it in. 5 times 4 gives me 20. 5 times negative x is going to give me negative 5x. On this side, 3 times x is going to give me 3x. 3 times negative 5 It's going to give me negative 15. And then it's all the same as before. We circle the variables. We notice they're on different sides, so we look for the smaller one. This is a negative 5, that's a positive 3. Negative 5 is smaller, so I add. So I'll add that 5x to both sides, leaving me with 20 equals 8x minus 15. And then it's just a two-step. We add 15 to both sides. We get 35 equals 8x. Divide both sides by 8. And we can just keep that answer as x equals 35 over 8. Okay, moving on. The second one, let's try that again. Draw your line. Now we can't circle the variables because they're in those parentheses. That tells me we have to distribute. So we're going to distribute the 2 first. 2 to 3x is going to give us 6x. 2 to negative 1 is going to give us negative 2. On the right side, 4 to 11 gives us 44. 4 times negative 2 is going to give us negative 8x. We circle the variables, look for the smaller one. 6x compared to negative 8x. I'm going to move the negative 8x because it's easier. So add 8x to both sides. 6x plus 8x is 14x. Minus 2 equals 44. These cancel out. Next step would be add the 2 to both sides, because remember that's farthest from the variable. We'll bring down what we have. 14x is going to equal 46. And divide both sides by 14. And we'll write our answer over here. X would equal, well, let's think. Can we divide 46 evenly into 14? That's a no, so we can reduce this at least. If we reduce by 2, we would get 23 over 7. Okay, so that would be our answer. So that's how you handle distributive property. Last one, let's look at this one. We draw our line. If you go to circle the variables, you'll notice there's one on this side, but there's 2 on this side. So that tells me right away, if I've got 2 on the same side, then I can combine those together. So since they're on the same side, we just do what it says. 2x plus 3x is 5x. Plus 17 equals 10x. I'm going to circle my variables again so I see where they are. Now I only have 1 on each side, so I have to put them together. From 5x or 10x, the 5 is smaller, so I'll subtract it because that was a positive 5. So we'll subtract 5 from both sides to make that one go away. We have 17 is equal to, well, 10x minus 5x is 5x. And now that x is just by itself on one side, which is what we wanted. Those are attached, so we divide both sides by 5, and we can just leave our answer x equals 17 over 5. All right, down here is just some checking to see what a student did wrong. We'll be doing that a little bit more on Thursday. So go ahead and make sure that you have paused this at any point. Make sure that you got all these notes and then finish your exit ticket. Talk to you soon.